Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maximum Libertarian Podcast. I'm joined today with Dean and Mitchell Bupp. Mitchell Bupp is he is going to be an independent candidate in the 9th Congressional District of Virginia. You can hear more from him from Revolution Radio in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and the Trump Assassination Files on Tuesdays, 8 to 10 p.m. So let me pull that up real quick, and I will show them. You go see that. Now, is it just on Rumble, Mitchell?
Yeah, I kind of simulcast on it's a revolution.radio, Studio B, 8 to 10 a.m. Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And on Tuesdays, I do a kind of a double show with the Tuesday night, the Trump Assassination Files. But yeah, and I'll do that on Rumble. I really haven't been linking it over to my locals account yet, but I've got so much going on, and every time I turn around, every time I turn a quarter turn, I run into something new. That's how I'll describe the way the world is today.
I understand that. So before we get started asking you questions, how have you thought Trump's second term has went?
Shitty. Trump is I think in the first Trump administration, he was literally under political attack by the Congress, and now this time around, I believe that the powers that should not be, of course, it's Israel and the spies among us and the CIA that have figured out how and what psychology to use to get Donald Trump to do their bidding. They really didn't know how to handle Donald Trump, and now they've kind of got him corralled. They've appealed to his ego. And he's going around the world putting out all the CIA wars, putting them out and saying, "Hey, I should get a Nobel Peace Prize."
Right.
But that's not going to happen, So he's on about a 4 out of a 10 scale right now. He is actually, the deep state is running his administration into the ground. A lot of that is clear and evident, the release of the Epstein files. And of course, if you're not aware, the coming release soon, hopefully, of the Anthony Weiner laptop files. So, Pam Bondi is a big disappointment, just like Jeff Sessions was. So, if you're not going to, if you're not going to prosecute, child pedophile, molesting, killing, flesh eating, people, criminals. I mean, they're, what use is the Department of Justice if they're not going to prosecute these people? There is no use for it.
Yeah, I would say that the one thing that took me to the Libertarian Party was our foreign policy. I came from the Republican Party, and the last Republican I voted for was John McCain. And I can't say that my vote went to John McCain, but it was Sarah Palin. And I know a lot of people have issues with Sarah Palin, but she had like excitement and she had life. And I was like, and then they started to turn on her like a pack of dogs. And I was like, I didn't understand what was going on here. And then I was like, these guys really don't care about the foreign policy. Yeah, I've been told how the Republicans have been there for the military, there for the police officers, but they keep putting them into these harm's way. And and then I was like, okay, there has to be something better. And that's what made me leave the Republican Party. And I joined the Libertarian Party in 2010 was when I actually became a dues paying member. But from 2009, I had one foot in, one foot out of like and I'm a Republican. Well, maybe I'm a libertarian. You know, I was flip flopping a little bit, but you know,
I understand that point of view.
And I can tell you, the second Trump administration, I really thought he was going to go in and be like, okay, I've seen how this game is played, and I was expecting more. And boy, have I didn't vote for the guy, but boy, have I been shocked how he's been. They hooked him by the nose and leading him around, if you will.
They really did. They hooked his ego up, and you know they blew it up, and they floated him around like a balloon down Fifth Avenue.
Oh, it's wild. Dean, were you going to say something?
Yeah, it's weird because you say, well, I came to the Libertarian Party was kind of opposite. Well, I lived in New Jersey, and came down here, and I was a blue dog Democrat, really more of an independent, but when I got down here, it was right around 2008 when I found out about the Libertarian Party, and then in 2013 became a card carrying member. But yeah, I came on the opposite spectrum because the socialism part of the Democratic Party is way out of control now, and that's just the way it is. And Trump, I was kind of hoping for more too out of him. Like I thought, okay, he spoke at our convention, our national convention. I thought maybe he'll do some things that are somewhat libertarian. He's done minute things that are libertarian, but he kept his promise on bringing the one guy home. I mean, and some of his tax idea for tax, getting rid of certain taxes. But I mean, he ain't done what he spoke up to doing. Really, what he's trying to do with some of these nationalized things is socialism also. So it's like two dummies, each other in the middle, and that's where we're at with him. So
oh God, I
would have had it. It would have been a lot worse if we would have had Kamala. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but I have voted Republican and I voted Democrat in the past. And, I'm like a lot of you guys. I was thinking, man, it'll be different the next 4 years, or it'll be different the next, after 8 years or something. And it never is. And, so, I had to strike out on my own, I guess, as an independent, because I've seen so many different, I want to call it so much political cowardness by Republicans in the face of Democrats, in the face of, to me, it's the face of the party of the Confederacy. The Democrats, Jefferson Davis was a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. You can get into all kind of ideological ideas too about the Civil War and how things end, but the truth is, the Democrat Party itself should have been buried in the ground at the courthouse in Appomattox with the Confederacy, but it wasn't. And it continued to live, and it had 100 years of Jim Crow. And then I guess they figured out that it was easier to buy people off. Pretty much that was, what Johnson was.
It's amazing how the Democrats have really been able to take, right now,
their historical failures and turn them into such a weapon they use today. I mean,
absolutely. And like the political, like affordability, if it's protecting democracy. And that's a question we'll start with. All right, with the redistricting plans. If it gets if it goes through and the voters say, yeah, let's have this redistricting, how does that change your signature collecting right now?
Well, I don't believe that it can change before the election. Okay. I don't believe that. I believe that with the recent Supreme Court decisions that a candidate can sue the election officials, and they have standing. Of course, during the 2020 election, there were several candidates that had sued about, what they perceived as cheating and bad ballots and fake ballots and everything else in 2020. The courts were essentially throwing those lawsuits out and said, in one particular case, I forget who it was, but they went to he appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. And through all the way, they said he had no standing to sue, the state over the election. He was, a candidate in the election. And, that had to go the whole way to the Supreme Court. That was one of the things that was, I think that was going on in part of the stuff in Georgia. Mm-hmm. But, Georgia is such a mess. And maybe now there will be some, what would I call it? Some accounting for the crimes in 2020 election in Georgia. I was, I don't know how I got in, but I was personally involved in some of that. And I had a whistleblower talking to me, and then I was speaking with some of Trump's, some of his team members that were on the ground going around trying to get the evidence. And, it's the entire atmosphere within the legals, within the police and the FBI and the Department of Justice and the lawyers, it was completely opposite of what it is today. And now maybe we can actually, get some of the truth. I had a guy call me and he asked me, he says, Mitch, he said, I saw something strange at work last night. And this was like on December the 2nd and during the morning. And I said, what was it? He said, well, when he works in Phoenix, Arizona at the UPS air terminal. Okay. He's worked there for years. Well, they loaded some Georgia runoff ballots onto a UPS plane called the Indy Express that flies out. It was December 1st, the night into the day of morning of December the 2nd, that this plane flew out of Phoenix, Arizona, with not just a few ballots on it, 3 to 4 tons of ballots on it. One of the big cargo things that they roll in and they push in. And he was just, is this legal and what is it? And they were all addressed. They were all basically the red mail-in ballots. Some of them were in bundles. Some of them were loose, but they were literally from all across the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I have never gotten an answer from anybody. Nobody will talk to me. They treat me like, redheaded stepchild, and they won't even answer my emails. And the journalists down there, they won't, they don't answer it back because they said, oh my God, it's one of these crazy people that say there's ballots coming into Georgia from out of state. Now, from what I understand, there were pictures, photographs and stuff taken of this. And the ballots themselves were coming from the United States Postal Service. Why, I guess they were just using the air freight to move them across the nation. But 2020, was a rigged election. People have to understand that Joe Biden was a CIA, agent, Muppet president, however you want to put it. He worked for the CIA when he was vice president under Obama. His son and parts of his family, not his whole family, but clearly Hunter Biden was involved in the Burisma project and CIA. They made what, $5+ million, allegedly $50 million from China. And you don't get away with this stuff unless you're connected. So yeah, I mean, we cannot have our president and our vice president and our leaders essentially just be CIA agents, part-time, full-time. It can't be, because then we're just a military state. So I have a lot of problems with the Joe Biden, presidency, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we are in a nation in deep trouble, in all honesty. So what can we do? I think we have to break through the psychology somehow. through the mass psychology that has been produced, that people so heartily believe on the left and on the right. So, and how can we, I just, that is, as I look and work and try to figure out, how to break through that wall for most people, because I don't think it's really going to be so hard to get on the ballot. I just really think it's really hard to get people to go outside their comfort zone in the face of the reality of the world that we're living in. I don't know, because people are so afraid and they're unsure. And when they're like that, they hunker down, they stay at home, and they don't go outside, their news sources or anything like that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Now, speaking about things like that, it's only going to go so far.
I agree.
Well, so how are you going to get around the issue of, now, even though there's a lot of things and that, conspiracies that I've listened to, and I'm like, hey, this is the truth. How do you get around that? How are you going to get into what are the topics that you're going to focus on?
Listen, it's like this.
Speaking to the
when I'm speaking to people, listen, it's like this. If your government isn't honest, how can it be honest back to you? Okay. How can it really represent you if it's not honest? Okay. We're living in a system where we have a two-party monopoly. It's just that simple. There are the barriers to entry into politics at the Washington, D.C. level are literally so high. You have to be a high jumper to literally get over the bar to get there. The only way is to really undercut their system. And that is happening right now with the Epstein files. And, what people have to understand is this isn't something new. The Epstein files. Okay. The Epstein file, Jeffrey Epstein and his work for the CIA and the Mossad go all the way back into the early 1990s to the BCCI bank. Right now, most of our money is within our government we're spending $1 trillion in interest right now. We have to quit literally funding everybody in the world and bring down our deficit, because our money is going to fail. It's going to hyperinflate. But it is. If you want to have honest government, it's like this. You can't send Morgan Griffith to Washington, D.C. He's a good old boy. He's really good in local politics, and he deals with honest people, but we're not dealing with honest people in Washington, D.C. And I don't know how many people don't understand that yet. I know they see it on the right. They see it on the left in a different term. And that is a different idea. But, we have to break through this concept first that if you're not a Republican or a Democrat, you count. People don't believe in third parties today. And that's why I run as an independent, because I'll probably get out there and I'll run my mouth and I'm going to say stuff that will piss people off. Okay. The transgender, the gay, the women's sports thing. It's such a false argument. It's not even funny. Okay. The reason that you don't see women that turn to men and become men, you don't see them going into men's sports because they cannot compete. It is the same difference with women. You actually have a whole class of trans individuals that are being discriminated against because, well, they're not men with balls that are going to compete in women's sports. I don't see it as an equality. It's a whole equality issue, and it has to be separated from men's and girls' sports. And that's such a false argument, because then that leads down. Everybody wants to argue about somebody's sexuality. Who gives a rat's ass about somebody's sexuality? As long as they're not out there, raping and committing violent acts, sexual acts against people, against people's wills, because face it, there are some people that like that stuff, and grooming young people. Free adults should be free to do what they want. We have to have some rational moral limitations when it comes to age limits and stuff, and whether somebody is or isn't a willing participant and stuff. So yeah, there are so many different things that look at the groceries, look at the price of food today. It didn't get that way overnight. It got that way because we have an economy that runs on a process of what do you call those? They're not even shortages. Okay. They run up the price of a commodity. Okay. And they run a bubble and bust economy. Okay. Each different part of the economy gets run up the rail. It runs up and then it busts. Okay. It comes back down to a third. It comes back down a third. So you're still facing 2/3 higher prices. And if you sit back and you look at different commodities have been literally worked this way over. The price of silver just was jacked up to, was it 110, 120 all about? And now they smacked it down to 75. I think it was back up to 80. I don't know what it is now, but we're looking at shortages all around the world. And this our foreign policy is just run stupidly. I don't know how else to say it. It's run as a direct part of that continued direct plan to attack Russia from the CIA. Okay. That's our foreign policy under Trump, is still run by the CIA, just as it was under Biden. So go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dean.
The 9th district is going to be mostly unaffected for collecting signatures. We discussed this last night, actually, at our SCC meeting, but definitely make sure you look at the maps and overlay them. But when it comes to other things, you're running as an independent. Is there a reason? I have looked at your stuff in the past. Is there a reason you're not running as a libertarian, or?
Well, listen, I am a certified member of the Libertarian Party. I had joined about a month or so ago because last time I was talking with you guys, I hadn't been, and I'm trying to kind of expand my platform. Let's see. First off, I am a convicted felon running for Congress. Okay, maybe that that turns off a lot of people. I got busted for selling weed back in 1982. Or 82. Okay. And so, I have that. I am, I'm a disabled veteran, and I have retirement, and, I tax protested, when I had my small business working on foreclosed homes. I used to, I spent, I don't know how long it was at the Franklin News Post in Rocky Mount at the newspaper. I spent time working there as a reporter, photographer, editor. And I went in and I quit. I gave them 2 weeks notice, and they looked at me, and I said, well, I'm going to start a small company working on foreclosed houses. And they said, why? I said, because there's going to be a big bust in the housing market, and housing prices are actually going to fall down. And this was in 2005. Really hadn't really kicked in, wasn't really in the big news, and really until 2008 or so. So, but, I quit doing that. I quit doing the reporting, and I started doing my own independent contracting. part of this, I guess, because I got used to working for myself, maybe, but you know, it was really interesting experience. And then when I started to tax protest after a few years, mostly because of the mortgage settlement that was made by the feds and the states about the robo signing deals and all that other stuff they had with the mortgage housing crisis. So that caused me to essentially not quit paying taxes. At that point, I think the last I knew it was with interest and penalty and stuff. I think it was over $800,000 that the IRS said I owed. But they haven't come lock me up yet. I haven't filed. I didn't file a lie or didn't file anything. I tell them, I said, it was really strange because I had to explain what I was doing to the local taxes here in Franklin County. They kind of looked at their head and they turned their head, and I paid them, my taxes, and I went on with the rest of my life. And, and so anyway, it's, I guess, I don't know. I guess after, I joined the Marine Corps, and I spent my time at Camp Lejeune drinking, toxic water. And it wasn't like we didn't know the water was toxic. You could taste it. You could smell it in the air. It's like you would walk into a dry cleaning store, it's like, except that was the vapors in the showers and the bathrooms and, coming out of the sink and shit. And they're like, drink that shit. What the F is wrong with you, dumbass? Drink it. Anyway, so, I pretty much, I left a kidney at Camp Lejeune. So I guess that's another reason why I'm not a big joiner, because I say a lot of things that people that are in the political spectrum shouldn't say, and I for one am not going to harm the Libertarian Party or the Constitution Party or any other party, because I got a big mouth and I run it. I mean, I was banned. They just recently allowed me back on YouTube. I had been banned since COVID days because, well, I was talking about the COVID stuff, and
YouTube is
ridiculous,
garbage. And I mean, even I shouldn't say that since I'm streaming.
No, I understand what you're saying,
but it is because companies can, without rhyme or reason, censor you. I pay for the blue check mark on X, right? And I just I can't remember. Someone made a comment, so I just said, jump in. Why don't you jump into the river with your hands in your pocket? And it was I was trying to be sarcastic.
No, I understand.
And the next thing they're sending me a community violation, and I was like, what the hell? So I want to go to Rumble and focus on Rumble. I've even talked to Dean, but it's so hard. You walk into Rumble and it's like, it's all right. You can go to the empty room and yell into the empty room, or you can go to where the people are, and you're trying to it's a balancing act, and it's hard.
No, I understand.
So what type of team do you have? Do you have a team that's helping you with treasurer or your website? I mean, there's so much. I mean, you got stuff.
No, I understand. No, I really, in all honesty, I'm kind of self-funding myself right now. I'm putting anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month of my own money in to push to do this. I've got a guy that web guy. I've got my website at the Trump Assassination Files.com website. I'm not sure if the Bupp for Congress is live yet or not. I thought it was. But it really is, and you really do need a team. And, I'm kind of struggling along that way because, I have always been this, I've always worn all the hats, and
with wearing all that, with such a big issue that, it's hard enough running for city council or House of Delegates, but then you move into a House race and the gerrymandering it's just insane. And you need to do press releases and things to that nature.
Well, no, I agree. I understand. I mean, I have my I have a 6x12 trailer that I've mocked up with my Obamagate stuff on the side of it, and I have about I don't know, about 160, maybe 180 names of people that were involved in the hit on Trump, in his first term. Okay.
Right.
And that was that, you have to understand, I guess that's part of my show that I do, that I have gathered all this information and I know all this stuff. And when you put it out there, like, gosh, home life is never sometimes the easiest. And anyway, I ended up buying a trailer all the way down in Raven, Virginia, all the way down near Richlands. Okay. Right outside of Richlands. Mostly because my half ex, I guess you could describe her, she was having some mental health problems, some bacterial infections, and she lost her brain. She lost her mind.
Okay.
And these scammers on the internet got a hold of her, and I couldn't get the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, them effing bastards. They wouldn't do jack shit. $16,000 down the toilet at about a year or more, and going through all that. And social services involved. And, so I said, look, I got to get away from this crazy. So I got a trailer down there in Raven and had kind of fixed it, done some work on it. And she would have lost her house and land, and that would have made that would have made three people homeless. Right. And I would have been okay. I mean, I'm not hurting for anything. And I as much as they pissed me off, I still have a heart. Okay. And I couldn't literally let them go down the toilet, even though they're circling it on their own volition. Okay. So I ended up coming back here and, helping Sharon and, and trying to help as many people as I can. And it's difficult when, I mean, I'm getting ready to lose another friend. I don't know if she died today or tonight or tomorrow, but she had 3 strokes since Friday. Okay. Another person that I know. All right. Last month, they put my friend Rodney in the ground. In August, they put my friend Jeff, my neighbor Jeff, in the ground. And, literally the whole way along, it seems like every 2 months, somebody I know is dying. And, over at revolution.radio, we had such a stretch where we lost 13 or 14 hosts and former hosts in like 18 months. I mean, it was really weird, Sharon. It was really weird, how it just seemed like, people I knew were, were dying. And so, what do you do with all that? I mean,
well, you pick up and you run for Congress. You just,
well, it's just maybe it's the bigger, maybe that's bigger than the ringing in my ears from this military grade tinnitus crap. Okay, I mean,
right,
but no, seriously,
yeah.
Everybody is going through traumatic stuff all the time. My mom. I remember my mama was this sweet woman, and at time, And but when my brother had passed away, it was right around Thanksgiving,
Mm.
and she went into Food Lion down in Manita, and when it was down in the bottom there, right there at the T. But she went in there and she flipped out because she didn't have enough coupons for weekly purchases to get her free turkey. And and it was just because she was grieving for her son.
Right.
But I it's to say goodbye to your friends if you can. That's what I would say, because I don't many years ago, I had an experience that changed my life. I probably wouldn't even be alive today. Okay. The road that I was headed down and I was traveling wasn't a good thing. And I was working on a job up in West Virginia, up in a little town called Varney, West Virginia. And on a pipeline job. And I had come back from my mom and dad's at Smith Mountain Lake, and I got my little camper parked in this little church parking lot right up behind the pipe yard. And I got this strange feeling somebody was watching me, somebody was looking at me, and I was like, really weird. I can't explain it, except I turned and I looked, and there's this ghostly images of a little old man and a little old lady. I can see my camper, the wood bark through it, from the paneling and stuff through them, and it was like time froze still. And then next thing you know, over in the right-hand corner, a white light appeared and they go, shoo. And I'm like, and I'm like, what the fuck did I see? What in the hell? I mean, you have to understand at that time I was really angry at God and I hated Christianity. Okay. But about 3-4 minutes later, maybe less, I can't say, I heard this loud rolling boom across outside, and I opened up my camper door, and there was 30-foot flames shooting out in front of this house, man. The fire had broke out. That's what the firemen had told me. And I went up around the back of the house. I kicked the door in, and the black smoke come out of there so thick, about the foot from, I mean, literally, just black smoke thick. And I really didn't connect the two things at that time. Okay. In all honesty, because I was thinking about the fire and in this realm of life. Yeah. And finally did get somebody, and they called the fire department. But I mean, by the time they got there, the house was already mostly burnt through, and I'm standing there above the house, and this baby blue Cadillac, old, like 80s, comes up the back road, and this guy gets out and jumps out, and he's dressed in a baby blue tuxedo, like he just came from a wedding or something, and he's got hair down to his shoulders, and his name was R.A. West, and Randy West. They called him R.A. Anyway, his mom and dad burned to death in that house right there. And he gets down beside me, rushes against me, and he's there, in the dirt in his tux. And he's, God, help me, protect me. I know my mom and dad are still alive. And I mean, the fire had burnt so far through the house. The windows in the far end from where I saw the fire break out, had fallen out. And I grabbed him and held him, and and the whole thing about, with the ghost and stuff, that was really lost in all the adrenaline and the excitement of the time. And I really didn't think about it a lot. And, I really didn't talk about it much until my dad got cancer and died. And, I'm like, hey, he'd be okay. I love my dad. And I'm like, he'll be okay. And it's really, it's really a hard thing to watch people die, and the ones and but we go on. And that's what I I guess that's part of one of the messages that I would say is that we do move on. And I talked to a guy one time that said, look, I died. He said, my blood pressure was zero. My blood sugar went to zero is what happened to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he was in a coma, but he said, it was just blackness to me. And then he came back, and and I can only know what I saw and what I experienced. And that kind of started me kind of back to being a better person than I had been, So but yeah, I mean, our lives, and I guess this is another reason why I take truth is, I was abused as a child. So I demand honesty. And if we can't have honesty, and this is what this shit with these Mossad Epstein files, with all there's a lot of young girls that may or may not be, they're drawing the line between children pedophilia and young girls. And in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases. And with Pam Bondi sitting up there and saying, well, it might crash the whole system. And I'm like, I really don't give a rat's ass. If the system is based on corrupt pedophilia and these powerful bastards, it shouldn't exist.
You got to break the system. Yeah, you got to let the chips fall where they may. That's the only way we can. It's almost like Kevin. I remember when I had skin cancer on my ear, and he cut the little piece off, and he's like, "We got to keep cutting until it's all gone." So sometimes it gets, and you dig in, and you have to dig in, and he did it like 3 or 4 times, and he was like, "Okay, it looks like it's all gone now." And that's exactly what you're dealing with the government. And that's what scares a lot of average people is you're going to have to cut the cancer out. I was talking to my doctor, and he was asking me about back in USAID getting pretty much eliminated. And I said, it had gotten so bad because he was telling me, he's like, I was there. He was in the Army. He was an Army doctor. Right. He said, he's like, I know the good stuff that it does. And I said, it's gotten so bad, you've got to completely kill it. You can't say, all right, we'll reform it, because you can try to reform it, but it's not, you just got to kill it.
Yeah, no, you really, you have to. I don't know if it can be done surgically, or you just have to amputate all the basic organs out of it and try to leave the body and heal it. I don't know when it comes to the body politic and the body government, but most certainly this two-party monopoly is certainly part of the problem.
Oh, absolutely. Dean, you got a question?
What are your, I would say, top 2 or top 3 things you want to accomplish in this campaign?
Well, we got to raise awareness about what is really going on in Washington, and how the politicians and the media seem to be working together. Be honest, it's just like when everybody was banned from YouTube because they talked about COVID. Okay. Today we're seeing essentially the same things that are happening. I believe that we do have to get a you want to top 2? Gosh. First, we got to get this corruption out of government. I don't care if We do it through the power of the people and exposing people and literally shaming them into getting out of Congress, if that's what it takes, or some type of legal framework to literally get these people out. Because today, the way it is, a quid pro quo doesn't exist. I mean, these guys are taking basically unlimited amounts of money as long as they're sent through the proper channels. Then it's not considered bribery. It's not considered quid pro quo. That was one of the things I had problems with this. What you want to call it, the nonprofit industrial complex, where AID and all these other groups were literally sucking out of the body government. And we have to have accountability, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I guess that whether it's fraudsters in Virginia or Minnesota or Maine or wherever, we cannot have 10 or 20% of fraud. I expect some fraud. There's always going to be something sliding through the system. Okay. People are always going to find a way to steal money from a trusting system. And, that's what the system has to be. Checks and balances, but the other part, a lot of people don't think about is our foreign policy. Okay. Have serious problems with the foreign policy, that the way it sits today. And what Trump is doing is essentially the same thing Biden did and the same thing Obama did in a way. We have a continuation of a CIA project in Ukraine, just as we had a continuation of a CIA project since the mid 1970s against Assad in Syria. Now, Al Qaeda, ISIS, Al Nusra, whatever they're calling themselves now, they're in control of Syria. Okay, so we have to quit arming bad people. I mean, Russia is directly threatened by what's going on in Ukraine. If you're not aware, NATO wants to, they're going to station French F-35 jets in Slovakia and give them American tactical nuclear weapons to drop. Okay. Literally, Russia has a choice. They can either stand up there, or they can come back down, and they can stand Cuba back up, arm, and if China and Russia arm Cuba to the teeth, that's no different than what we're doing, in Slovakia and Poland and Latvia, in Ukraine. You have to understand, the Russian invasion of Ukraine only happened after, not one, not two, but three failed attempts by the Russians to negotiate with the West over Ukraine. The Minsk I and Minsk II agreements. And then we have to understand that Victoria Nuland, under the Bush-Harris team, they were negotiating with Russia over the color revolution model that the U.S. is currently using around the world. Okay. And I believe it was November. Was it November of 23? Anyway, in November, the Russians announced that they thought that they had a framework agreement with the U.S. on this movement of the U.S., to the Russian frontier across the Iron Curtain countries. And it was around Thanksgiving. And it wasn't but 2 weeks later, the U.S., in response, put a rebuttal in the New York Times that said, no, we talked about it, but we really don't have a framework agreement. Okay. And Russia had kind of lowered its defenses, thinking that they were going to, mitigate this stuff diplomatically. Well, it happened in January. The U.S. tried a color revolution in Kazakhstan. Russia sent in troops to save Kazakhstan from falling immediately this time, instead of delaying as they did with Ukraine. It was after that attempted overthrow. The next month is when Russia decided to invade Ukraine proper, okay, and to denazify it, so to speak, and put a buffer zone. But I don't see any change of track or any change of direction from World War III over all of that mess that's going on right there. In fact, the deep state had Trump say that he was going to be the first U.S. president to visit Kazakhstan. So, I really see that as one of the political things that are coming. Okay. The European Union, I refer to it as the European Soviet Socialist Union, pretty much because all the countries in Europe at the outbreak of World War II, they were already so far left, it wasn't funny. Fabian socialism, fascism, communism. There was no right wing. And, everybody thinks there's right wingers in Europe, and there never have been in this, since I don't know when, but certainly not after and during World War II. But, we're looking at this breakdown of Europe and this breakdown of American societies. Okay. The breakdown of Western societies. I mean, if you can't see that the UK is literally is a broken society today, because the Islamic invasion, I'll just say it. Okay. That whether people want to agree or not, that's okay. But Islam and Judaism is incompatible with the United States. They don't believe in freedom of speech. In fact, these guys have superiority complexes, and we are infidels. We are goyim to them. We are as low as animals to most of these individuals that are claiming to be our elite leaders. So, from these areas. When it comes to the Middle East, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot cattle prod, in all honesty. Frankly, I mean, I don't believe that Israel didn't know October 7th was coming. Okay. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that the attack by Hamas was a surprise on Israel. I just believe it was a false flag. 70,000 Palestinians dead. An area the size of Brooklyn, New York, literally destroyed to the ground. 140 square miles devastated. And Trump and company are going to walk in there and build 180 skyscrapers for the Palestinians to live in. I mean, what fantasy planet are these clowns from?
Well, I'll say this one thing, and the whole thing was so much. It's not that it's the people. Like if you were to pick us all up, me, you, and Dean, and drop us into Iran and into just some Iranian people, we'll be fine. And I'm telling you, because
okay,
everybody wants to live It's the whole thing, you want food in your belly, you want to be safe, and you want a roof over your head. It's basic. The problem that we run into and that people have got to discuss, and I always talk about it, is it's the government. The government is always the thing that puts me and you against one another. It puts whites against blacks. It puts poor against rich, because it's easier to control. But sometimes what we do is we go, America is bad. No, America is not bad. It's our government that has been systematically doing this, using mind control that teaches the white guy that that somehow I own slaves and that I need to be sorry for being a white guy. And then you're teaching a black guy he's oppressed and he's being held back. So if he don't, that he's never going to get ahead in life. And that's all mind control. And once we understand, like, break the system, that's when you can fix it. And you can't fix, and that's where we go back to, you got to kill the beast. And I'm not calling for going into the government and killing anybody,
Right.
But
I understand that.
Yes,
we have to have a peaceful revolution.
Absolutely.
It cannot be a violent revolution, because look, they have so much bigger guns and so much deeper pockets than we, the people, will ever have. And besides, it has to be a populist style revolution. And can we get enough people on the same page, in the same mindset, with the same belief that we can stand against government, without torching malls for George Floyd, okay, without literally turning cars over and starting riots and stuff,
right?
When this Palestinian stuff was going on, and when the retribution was taking place, I was like, I know the Palestinians maybe not like to hear what I'm getting ready to say, but the best thing they could do is to put down all their guns, all their weapons, everything, and stand there unarmed. And sooner or later, how many would have to be innocently slaughtered, by Israel for the world to speak out? Okay. I guess, I think Americans are deluded into thinking that they can fix these cultural divides across the Middle East. And we can't. We can barely handle the cultural divides, within our own nation, and from this founding of our own nation, and before and after the Civil War. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Brian. DEI is just basic racism training. You're teaching people to put racism on their shoulder and keep it like a chip on their shoulder. And whenever they get a look at somebody, they have to break out this checklist. Are they this? Are they that? Are they this? Are they that? And until we get people past this idea that, look, we're all going to be different. We're all going to be idiots at times. We're all going to be assholes at times, because nobody is 100% likable all the time. But we can be people, and we should be honest with others. And that's, those are some of the things that really matter. And, I really despise that government has literally gotten in, into the medical industry. Okay. It used to be, you and your doctor. And then for a little while, it became you and your insurance company, and then your doctor. Now it's you, the government, your insurance, and then, your doctor. So, we have too many hands in the pie and too much control of a system, because what they have done is they have expanded the number of people that can literally use the Obamacare insurance window. I think it to 128,000 now. I'm
not certain about that.
But they had just And this was another one of the reasons why they had the first government shutdown, was because it was $1.4 trillion that was going to go to the insurance companies,
Right.
So
the thing that bothers me is a lot of times is the Republicans when Maynard Keller was running against Sam Razul here in Roanoke. I remember I was talking to him and I said, Trump is not only is he running against Democrats, he's running against his own party. When Elon Musk came out with the Doge, everyone loved it. And then the Republicans do nothing with it. They're spineless. And I don't understand how anyone can tell me or Dean or yourself to vote Republican because they're going to fix it. I'm telling everyone to vote against the gerrymandering bill. I think it's a crooked thing and I can't stand cheating. But at the same time, the Republicans haven't done anything to make me feel like, all right, if we give them power, they're going to be truly looking out for the individual. Yeah, they're not helping the individual. They're, you got something to say, Dean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's bull. The whole thing is just to power grab DC so they can get more people to try to block anything to go through. It's already bad enough we get crap laws, but you get this to happen, you get the change to half the House or half the Senate. One of them switch, and this whole nothing happened for 2 years, and it just goes down the drain even further. And it's just, to me, it's what's garbage about it. And I think we need somebody strong to get into office in an independent voice up in DC, so we have a better stance on just individual liberties as a whole.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And Bernie Sanders is not an independent.
No.
He's a communist. He just won't admit it.
I think liberty-minded individuals should look at the playbook of the Marxist communists, because how did Zoran Mondani, I mean, what he was promising New York, anyone with a brain would have went, this isn't going to work, and people voted him in.
Hey, now wait. No, I'm laughing because all you hear from Democrats is, man, those Republicans, they just dumb, they stupid, they're just low-brow voters. They just aren't very smart. And how can you be caught with such obvious bait and switch and this style of hopium that they put out?
I know. Spamberger's a moderate, like
crazy.
Honest, Spamberger is nothing close to a moderate. She's a socialist that's following AOC and Kamala and the rest of them into what looks to be a Kamala AOC. That's what I keep talking about now. Is they're kind of running for president and vice president.
Kamala will not be on the ticket. If you were a betting man right now, AOC I could see her somehow. And you want me to? And this might be chauvinistic. I get it. She's a pretty lady. All right. And she's a young lady. She's pretty. But after that, she's brain dead. Sorry. And but if I don't know if Gavin Newsom's going to make the stage. He'll make the stage, but would he get the nod? Who would be who do you think the Democrats right now from what you see?
I'd say it's pretty open. But it does look like AOC and Gavin Newsom were over just in Europe, making waves at the European Union, saying that you guys have a friend in California, but it is pretty far out, and as far as AOC, she might make a good vice presidential candidate, because remember, the vice presidential candidate always has to be dumber and a bigger idiot than the president, because, that way they won't get assassinated, right? I mean, if you look at it, we went from Obama with Biden
Right.
And then we were Biden with Harris. Yeah. So you see it's kind of a trend there
of Obama. So it all makes sense. Okay, so switch up. Who do you see in the Republican Party like running together?
It does. It looks a lot like Vance is going to be there in one form or another. I will say this: since these guys don't watch my shows, now if you want to watch, I got Revolution Radio archives of my show. Revolution Radio archives. You can go over to revolution.radio. You can follow the link. They're all free, and there are shows going back into 2017. I don't know if there's any 2016 shows left in there. But you can go back there and see this stuff. It's, it's all the same, but it's different. It's all the same grift. There's just some different faces. And, until we get some power to change it. I had produced a guy's radio show for a little while. Gene Chip Tatum. Chip was a NSA airplane and helicopter pilot working for Oliver North at the time that they were bringing the tons of drugs back in during Iran-Contra. Okay, they estimated they brought in about 8 tons of hybrid cocaine. Chip told me, he says he personally handed a drink cooler to Bill Clinton, had a kilo of high grade, Nicaraguan or El Salvadorian coke in it with about $20,000 in cash. Is also, he was also directed to go. This is why he quit the NSA. Chip had been ordered by the H.W. Bush administration to contact H. Ross Perot's campaign and warn him off during the 1992 presidential election. That's why that the NSA actually went to H. Ross Perot and said that the order was to neutralize Perot. Now, they were allegedly going to use some kind of sex scandal with his daughter being a lesbian. Okay. But, these things do happen. Richard Milhouse Nixon, he was taken out by the CIA. All of that was, basically, a leak to the Washington Post to get all that done. And if you remember, all the plumbers were CIA agents. So, and that was orchestrated by Herbert Walker Bush. Herbert Walker Bush was also involved, of course, if you're not aware, in the Bay of Pigs, where he used his oil platform and his freighter to move the weapons to Cuba, from the Bay to Cuba, and from the drilling rig at Zapata Oil. But JFK was murdered, probably by the CIA. They say there's certified there's 3 shots in Daly Plaza. So, but things really get muddled over time in history. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I started doing these Trump Assassination Files shows, because of this attempted political assassination against Trump. I mean, it actually started in 2015 with Stephen Halper literally going to a conference at the Cambridge Security Conference in England at Cambridge University, where Stephen Halper, under contract with the Pentagon, actually then accused General Flynn of going out and boinking with one of the Russian agents. It was that probe of General Flynn that, as they were just getting ready to close it, it was that probe that they magically turned around and flipped to keep open so they could bring in through the Crossfire Hurricane stuff lines. But the truth is, these guys, many of them should be hung. Many of them should spend the rest of their lives in prison. And, the truth is, because they have the power and they have the offices that are adjacent to that power, nothing is going to happen to these guys. And that is, that's a crime against humanity. I don't care how you slice it.
Sir, I completely agree. We've hit the 1 hour and 10-minute mark, and I know we could go a lot longer.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, where can people find your information to support you?
Well, you can, if you want to see what I'm posting on Facebook, my name on my Facebook page is Go On With That Bullshit, all one word.
Okay.
Okay. And, you can go over to revolution.radio. You can catch me on Rumble in the mornings. And I'm going to have my trailer. I've got, my Obamagate trailer. And I'm getting ready. I should have been out today, but I got tied up doing some stuff. But as weather allows, I'm going to be going out and doing, I'm going to setting up my trailer. So if you see this big thing, it says Obamagate across it, you'll think, who in the hell is that crazy person? You'll know it's me.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again for coming on. Dean, do you have anything to say?
Not at all. He brings that thing up to Bedford County in the 9th District. They got to get signatures. So probably attract a bunch of people to come over there and sign
I certainly can. I certainly will.
Oh, for sure.
All right, my friend. I would love to talk to you again later on in maybe a week or two, see how things are going.
Yeah, sure.
Just to hear more from the stories that you were sharing with us. It's always fun.
Oh my God.
I wish you well.
And
I think really what I picked up from you is you're wanting honesty in Washington. I hope a lot more voters start voting for honesty and not just, hey, red is my favorite color or blue is my favorite color. Until we do that, we're in quicksand. But I think we can wake people up. So good luck. And for Dean, for Mitchell, we will see you later. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.